Hello and Merry Christmas, and welcome back to another episode of a Cozy Christmas Podcast. My name is Art, and there are just 2 more days until Christmas. Well, I hope that you have been enjoying this Christmas season. For me and my family, it's gone very, very quick. I was just talking with Grace the other day about how fast it has felt. This year, I think we might celebrate in a way that other countries do. In America, we tend to view Christmas Day as the end of the Christmas time. I know in many other nations, Christmas Day is actually the beginning of the Christmas celebrations. And we've just had so much going on this month, as well as fighting some bad colds that got into our house, and we'll definitely be looking at these next couple of weeks as Christmas time to celebrate. I had some plans to get these episodes out sooner than I did, but like I said, I had a cold, my voice was shot, and I just didn't have the time to get everything done that I wanted to, so I had to do some rearranging. So here's what's going to be coming over the next couple of days. Today, I have a fun episode planned for you with Marty Achatz. He is the co-host of Lit for Christmas, one of my new favorite podcasts that have come in the Christmas podcast community. He and his co-host Amanda, they get drunk and talk about Christmas lit, just to give you the elevator pitch. But it's a fun podcast, and I especially like the literature angle to it. So that's been one of my favorites to listen to this year. So yeah, today we're going to talk Bigfoot, we're going to talk Little Women, we're going to talk Christmas. And then after the interview, Marty and I were talking, and then I realized that he is probably just as big of a Dickens fan as I am. So I'm going to have him back on sometime in the spring, and we're going to sit down and talk more about Dickens. So something to look forward to in the new year. To be honest, I'm glad I didn't realize that during the interview, or this interview would have been maybe a couple hours long. So we'll plan to have him back to talk about Charles Dickens and some of his great Christmas stories. Tomorrow, then, be on the lookout because part 5 of A Christmas Carol will be out. It will be out on Christmas Eve. It's a shorter story, or it's a shorter chapter. And then on Christmas Day itself, I will have an episode. It will be an interview I've had with an author. Her name is Amy Boucher Pye. And she's just written an Advent book this year that her father actually illustrated. And so it's this father-daughter work that I found to be really spiritually inspiring. So we'll sit down and have a more serious spiritual conversation on Christmas Day. And that's something you can enjoy sometime that day or in the week following as you celebrate. It is not too late to order her book. I believe you can also get it online as an ebook. And as we talk about in the interview, again, people do celebrate Advent all the way through till January 7th or even some farther. So the next 3 days, we'll be having 3 episodes out. I'm hoping to get some time to record with Gracie and have some fun with her. That will be attached to one of the 2 episodes coming out in the next 2 days. And then after that, what's going to happen is I probably will not have any episodes out for the next week or so, just to give you all time to get caught up on my episodes. And I've got family with my son is home from college, and we have some plans. And I really want to make sure that I have the time to be with my family. I'm just so grateful for all of you listeners who have followed me through this year. And I'm so excited about the things I'm already starting to plan for 2022 with this podcast in the community. So there's a lot of cozy Christmas fun coming, not just this week, but into the new year. But for now, let's get to the interview with Marty Achatz. I have a special guest on the podcast today. By this point, I call all of my guests special, so but I'm excited to have our guest on today. His name is Marty Achatz. He just published a new spoken word album called Christmas with Bigfoot. I just finished listening to it today, and it's a delight. I love, Marty, how you can take two seemingly random objects and tie them into Christmas. With Bigfoot, or the first entry there in your Christmas with Bigfoot, it's Bigfoot and Little Women. And like, okay, how's this gonna work? And you make it work. You tie it in, and you tie it into Christmas. It was a delight.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's one of my favorite things when I sit down to write like a Christmas essay or something like that, is to put two things that you don't think really will fit together and put them in conversation with each other and see how they end up talking to each other. And I do a Christmas essay every year. And last year it was Bigfoot and Little Women. So
well, last year's Christmas was weird, so why not,
Exactly. Well, I was literally stuck in quarantine for the entire month of December. And so I literally, all I had to do was watch movies and write. And I worked from home a little bit with my laptop as well. But yeah, that was a really long month of just being at home and contemplating things. So
yeah. Well, and longtime listeners of the show will recognize Marty. You shared with me with the podcast, I think it was earlier this summer, your essay, Gloop Christmas, where you talk about Augustus Gloop and how that tied into Christmas for you. And I heard that on your podcast, Lit for Christmas, and I reached out to you just to have it on, and I'm so thankful you did. It's I love that story. I love that.
That was one of my earlier essays. I've been writing these essays for close to 20 years, putting together like at first I didn't set out to put together a manuscript of Christmas essays, but that's what it's ended up being. And Gloop Christmas is one of my favorites. Absolutely. Because it puts two of my favorite things in the same piece, which is I love Roald Dahl's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and I love Christmas. So putting those two together was just perfect. And plus, I love chocolate too. I mean, who doesn't love chocolate? So.
I love chocolate. Hey, absolutely. And then you also, like I mentioned, host a podcast, Lit for Christmas, and that I think you started that just this year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it was one of those pandemic things. I was I was talking with a friend of mine, a longtime friend of mine, Amanda, who's lives downstate. I live in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, like mid Upper Peninsula, and she lives downstate near Ann Arbor. And we hadn't seen each other in years, and we sort of reconnected because of the pandemic and everything. And we just started talking, and she's a graduate of an MFA program in poetry, and I am a graduate of an MFA program as well. And we were talking about our old grad school days where we all just sort of sat around, drank, and talked about books. And I thought, that's a great thing, and I missed it, and she missed it too. So I suggested that we start this podcast, Lit for Christmas, where literally you get lit and you talk about Christmas lit. So it's just, and it's so much fun. It really is.
Yeah.
There's so many really good Christmas books out there and things that, books that people aren't even aware of. And I just love being able to focus on those for a good period of time. So yeah, Lit for Christmas. It's one of these, we started it. I think our first episode was in January. So yeah, we're coming up on our 1-year anniversary pretty soon.
All right. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
That's exciting when you've put the work in for the year, and then you can look back and say, all right, what worked, what didn't, are we going to do it again, and keep going. Yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly. And, Amanda and I, we have no plans to discontinue. I mean, there's plenty of alcohol out there, and there are plenty of Christmas books to accompany them. So yes. Yeah. In fact, we're recording a new episode this coming Thursday, I think.
All right.
Yeah. So,
all right. Now I am a little behind on my podcast listening. It oddly, it happens in December. So
what a surprise.
what a surprise. Yeah. Right. But I have enjoyed those episodes, and there's been a few that I've been a little worried about your liver at the end of it, but
yeah, I've tried to limit my alcohol intake. Literally those nights that we record is practically the only night of the month that I imbibe, because when my son like looks at me the next day and is like, oh, he's 13 years old and he realizes that I'm a little hungover, I find I can't do that too much. So
do a walk of shame down to the kitchen, and
there have been many walks of shame after recording, let me tell you.
Yeah. But it's all in good fun, and it's a great podcast. Now, what I like about it is the literature aspect. That's a big interest of mine. I'm not a drinker at all, but knowing that you talk about literature, there's stuff there for me to enjoy as well. And one of the early episodes you were talking about, was it the short story that It's a Wonderful Life was based on?
Oh, Philip Van Dorn Stearns.
Yes.
The Greatest Gift.
There you go. Yeah. That was a fun one. I recall that one being a fun one.
it was a lot of fun. And I believe it or not, Amanda had never watched It's a Wonderful Life.
Mm.
And I was like astounded by that. I was like, I don't know how she reached the age that she is, which I won't say. And her have never watched It's a Wonderful Life. Mm-hmm. And Philip Van Dorn Stearns short story is sort of has the same elements, but it's so different from the actual movie. So it was almost like talking about two separate Christmas works of art. So
yeah. And I feel like especially those older adaptations tended to really just take the basic premise of the story and just kind of flip it on its head.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And usually I'm a person who says that a book that the movie is never as good as the book. Mm-hmm. or short story or whatever. I will say with Philip Van Dorn Stearns' story that I think the movie is a little superior to the short story. But neither would exist without each other. So
right. Yeah. So where or what has been maybe a favorite work of literature that you've covered on your podcast?
I really have the first book that we did, which was Joseph Brodsky's Nativity Poems. I sort of have an affection for it because it was the first book, but I've loved those poems for a really long time. They're just for me as a poet, I really appreciate how he takes Christmas. And of course, the impulse as a writer is to go towards the sentimental. Brodsky just never does that. They're hard, they're dark poems, but full of really hard, dark beauty, which I really, really appreciate. And so, yeah, I love that particular book. I did enjoy the first, because we rate our books or whatever we're reading on a scale of 1 to 5 Tiny Tims, 1 being like the worst, Scrooge never changes and Tiny Tim dies before next Christmas, and 5 being like the best, where Scrooge has his moment of epiphany and Tiny Tim lives to become Prime Minister of England, that kind of thing. And the Truman Capote's A Christmas Memory was our first one where we both agreed that it was a 5 Tiny Tim story. And I've always loved that Truman Capote little novella. It's just a beautiful piece. So I would say those 2 books have been my favorites so far.
I have not yet read that Truman Capote story, and I've come across it several times, or people have mentioned it last year and a half. And I've got a book now here somewhere that has the story in it. So I'm looking forward to sitting down to read it here soon.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. I had warned Amanda because she hadn't read it before. I said, just be prepared. I said, have a box of Kleenex next to you at the end. And she called me like after she'd finished reading it, like right after she finished reading it. And she's like, I can't believe I'm sitting here like weeping. And I'm like, yeah, I kind of warned you about that. That book can make you weep even if you're not drinking. So, it's a really, really good novella.
Oh, outstanding. Well, I might have to read it and I'll talk about it maybe on the episode you're in here. So
awesome.
If I cry, I'm just gonna flip the microphone on and sob
there you
into
go.
it. That's one of the stories I've been looking forward to reading this year. I just hope we can make time for it.
It's short, so I mean, give yourself about half an hour, 40 minutes. You should be able to get through it, and it's really beautiful.
So you're putting out a new spoken word album, or
I call it a spoken word album.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a wannabe musician. I do play like the keyboard and things. So I've always admired musicians putting out Christmas albums every year, and I've always wanted to do that. And I had a friend who is in a band called Streaking in Tongues. Mm-hmm. And we just he suggested that we do a Christmas album, and I was all down for it. So yeah, I would call it a spoken word Christmas album. Mm-hmm. There's music in it, not a lot of music, but there's enough music in it to I think satisfy people who are looking for Christmas music as well.
The first story on the album is Bigfoot and Little Women, mm-hmm. and I love the story of Little Women, and I was really, I don't know, it was really fun just the way you tied that in with your Christmases.
I really when I was in quarantine last December, one of my go-to movies that I watched quite a bit. I watched it so much that my family was getting tired of me. But I watched the new Greta Gerwig film version of Little Women, which is superb. I mean, it's like one of the best versions I've ever seen.
Yes.
And so that Louisa May Alcott, who I really adore as a writer as well. She was on my mind a lot as I was sitting at home and thinking about, the story of Little Women and with Meg and Joe and Beth and little Amy and Beth's, the part where Beth dies, just thinking about what we were going through at that time in the pandemic with so much, chaos and upheaval and people losing loved ones. And for some reason, that book just really, really spoke to me last Christmas. And so that was one part. And then I've been working on a collection of not Christmas poems, but a regular collection of poems that are Bigfoot poems. And so I just decided to throw Bigfoot into the mix and see how they sort of worked together. And I like to think that they did work together well. So
yeah, it's there's a point where you wonder, okay, what is he doing with this? You jump from Little Women to Bigfoot to Little Women, and then it all kind of comes together, especially near the end, and it's really fun.
Oh yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it. I sometimes worry when I do that, when I throw like two weird things together, whether it actually is ever going to come together at the end or not. And funny enough, it always seems to work out. So.
Yeah. Well, I love on Little Women, of course, the book opens on Christmas, and just a very iconic first chapter. And I was just thinking today, as you were reading those opening lines, how in each of the sisters' opening statement, you get a big picture into their personality, and it's just one line, and she's a master at doing that.
She really, that's one thing that I really admire about Louisa May Alcott, her ability to like paint a character in like one or two lines like that. Like you read that opening, like you said, and you immediately know what kind of person Meg is, what kind of person Joe is, Beth is, and Amy is. And that's all in like the first paragraph or two paragraphs of the novel. And she sets things up so well. Louisa May Alcott, I don't think that she gets the credit that she's due. as to what a good writer she was. But she was an amazing talent.
I had to chuckle too as you talk about how that book was a struggle for her because she wanted to write what does she call them, the Thunder and Blood books or whatever she calls
the
them.
Thunder and Blood books.
Yeah. And I kind of feel sorry for her somewhat because she gets pigeonholed as this warm and cozy writer of children's stories, and she's like, I want to write the mysteries and the the stalkers and the bloodshed and all that.
Yeah, she was all about like vampires and
Yeah.
curses and things like that. And she absolutely hated the idea of writing Little Women. Absolutely hated it. And I don't know how well she would feel about the fact that when people say her name, all they think about now is Little Women as opposed to other things that she wrote.
Yeah.
But I think that Little Women has a depth to it that sort of saves it from being just a children's book. It really does.
Yeah. There's there's good moral lessons. It's a good story. It's good writing. I mean, it succeeds on a lot of levels.
It really does. Yeah. And the tale of the father coming home. It starts on Christmas, and then the first half of the book ends on Christmas as well, with the father coming home from the Civil War. And when I first read that book, I actually thought that the book was going to end there, that it sort of should have ended right when the father comes home at Christmas and everybody's together. And of course, Louisa May Alcott just doesn't leave it there. She pushes it further, which I really admire about that, because it would have been a really easy ending to just leave it with the girls having their father home and not dealing with all the other things that come afterward. So the fact that Louisa May Alcott was brave enough to push it even further is a pretty good credit to her artistry.
Yeah, and maybe they talk about it a little bit in the new movie that came out, but I isn't that somewhat true to life, that they were kind of the publishers were kind of pushing her to write more than just that first half?
Yeah, they really did. She sent the first half off to her publisher, and he was like, yeah, what happens? Because the thing is that the publisher, if you have an unmarried woman in a story back then, by the end of that tale, the publisher wanted that woman married no matter what. And so what you have at the end of the first half of Little Women is you have everybody wondering whether Jo was going to end up marrying Laurie, and they were going to live happily ever after. And of course, that would have really been easy for Louisa May Alcott. And of course, she doesn't do that. Laurie ends up marrying Jo's little sister Amy instead. And I think that she did that in a way to sort of thumb her nose at the publisher that was trying to force her character to do something that she didn't think her character would do. I mean, Jo ended up married at the end, but not to the person that you would expect. So
yeah, she I guess always kept us guessing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I was just looking at some of the different movie versions and how iconic the role of Jo has been, and several of the actresses have been nominated for awards for their performance. And I think that just shows the testimony of what a powerful character she is.
She really is. I mean, you think some of the actresses that have played her, Katharine Hepburn played her. I'm thinking,
Winona Ryder.
Yeah, Winona Ryder. I was thinking, I immediately went to Stranger Things for some reason. I was like, Winona Ryder. Winona Ryder. And that's Saoirse Ronan in this last version.
Oh, she was great too.
Just great actresses. And I think all three of them were nominated for Best Actress for the movie. So that's astounding.
Well, this has turned into a Louisa May Alcott podcast now. So.
That's all right. I don't mind giving Louisa May Alcott her due.
I haven't talked much about her before, so that's good. Yeah, I love the movie versions. Especially since they open up with Christmas and there it just seems like a Christmas book, even though it's maybe not. I guess I guess we can put that in the Die Hard category, you know. Is
it a Christmas book? Isn't it a Christmas book?
Yeah.
And by the way, people are going to hate me for this, but Die Hard's not a Christmas movie. So Anthony can come at me. I don't care. It's not a Christmas movie. So
all right, shots are fired.
There you go.
Well, I tend to be on your side about that argument. So
good. Illiterate people know better. They just know better.
But we'll save that for another podcast. And you can, if you're angry, you can send all hate mail to Marty, and he'll
send it my way. I can take it. I'm a college professor. I get all kinds of hate emails.
Oh my goodness, yeah, you do. And then another story on your album that really moved me was the Live Long and Prosper story, where you talk about a little bit about Star Trek and how much your sister loved it, and then unfortunately her passing. I don't think that was that long ago, was it?
No, it was about 5 years ago. Yeah. That was a really tough essay to write for me. It was at the point where when I started writing that, I wasn't sure if I really wanted to write it. Mm-hmm. But there's a poet, Richard Hugo, says that what you should write about is the things that you don't want to write about. And so that's that I sort of had that in the back of my head as I was working on it. But I just hope that I sort of did her memory justice with that essay, because she was a really important person in my life, and loved Christmas, and sort of went out of her way to make everybody's Christmases wonderful. So, when she was gone that year, I think I wrote that particular essay the Christmas after she passed. And so I was feeling her absence a great deal. And that particular essay sort of, for me, was sort of healing in sort of bringing her back that holiday season.
Yeah. Well, and it's, again, you're taking these two concepts or ideas, and how are they going to connect? And it's done beautifully. But and just sharing painful memories or happy memories at times, but it can be painful to bring those up. But I think that's important. It's good to keep those memories alive and to keep sharing those. I talked about that a little bit on a previous episode, but
I remember you talking about that. And it was right at, I think that episode came out just a week or so after my mother passed recently. And I really appreciated that particular, and your words on that episode a lot.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that. I had my grandma, who I've spoken of before on this podcast, and she just made Christmas so special for us. And she passed away on, it was early in the Christmas season, but it was early December, like 6th or something. She had just a tremendous impact in her life. And I think it was 2001 as when she passed away. So that year was just kind of an emotional year for us. But
it's a matter of how you pick up the pieces and move forward. And for me, because I'm a writer and a poet, the way that I pick up the pieces and move forward is always through words. That's what I do.
Because I can remember having, there's a story told about when Charles Dickens died, and it was made known, and a little girl had asked, "Does that mean Father Christmas is dead too?" I don't know if that's apocryphal, but it's a story that gets passed down. But
I want to believe that story is true.
Yeah,
because I can just hear a little kid saying that.
Yeah. And he had such an impact on Christmas, but I to me that rings true because of someone like my grandma who made Christmas special for us. And she's gone now, and so there's in some ways a part of that's going to be gone. Right. But we do things to keep to remember her and to keep the spirit that she brought to Christmas alive.
Absolutely. I mean, the Christmas ornaments that you got from them, or Christmas pictures, or doing that Christmas tradition that they always did every year. You know, for my sister, it was making making pizzellis. I don't know if you've ever had pizzelli, but they're like a very kind of soft, flat. It's an Italian cookie with you could anise flavored usually. But she always made those every Christmas, and I was never good at making them. But I made some that the Christmas following her passing. So I do think it's really important to keep those kinds of traditions alive, and to keep those people close to you that way. So.
Yeah, my grandma used to make fudge every Christmas, and it could be nostalgia speaking now, but we have yet to find fudge that tastes anything like how she made it. And I've even had family members who have used her recipe, and it just doesn't quite taste the right way. I don't know, maybe it's just my mind playing games on me, knowing it didn't come from her.
I know, I totally believe that, I had my grandma made chocolate chip cookies. When she passed, I swear to on my grave, that I've never had a chocolate chip cookie as good as the one that she made. And I don't know what I think that grandmas sort of, yes, they have the recipe written down, but they just sort of work from memory, and they don't necessarily follow that recipe completely. So yeah.
Yeah. My wife is starting to get that way, and I've been trying to learn a little bit about baking and baking treats and goodies and stuff, and I've enjoyed that. But then I'm very exact, if it says this much measurement, I got to use that much of a measurement. Or if it says it has to be in the oven for this long, that's it. That's gospel truth there. Yep.
Yeah. I drive my wife crazy because I'm following a recipe, and she'll hear me say, close enough. And that, and that just drives her crazy, because my wife is like you when it comes to baking. It's like science. You have to do it exactly. And I'm like, 1 or 2 caps of vanilla. What does it matter? It's vanilla, that kind of thing. She's like, how can you do that? Yeah. I drive her a little crazy.
It's so funny. But doing things like that, just reminding yourself of them. I think it's a powerful thing we can do for sure. Yeah.
It absolutely is. And whenever I read or do a reading where I read one of my Christmas essays about my sister or my dad or something like that, it really, I really feel their presence with me when I do that. And it brings them back for just that short, brief period of time, whether it's a 12-minute essay or a 20-minute essay. So,
and then the other larger essay on your album is called The Christmas Eve Wrinkle, which I found really charming and sweet. Tells the story of a Christmas play at a church, and they have an unexpected visitor at the end.
Yeah, that's it exactly. Yeah. That one. I pulled on my experience as I'm a church organist and musician. And so I was roped into doing the Christmas programs for a good 15 or 20 years. For those of you that have only sat and watched Christmas programs and not had to sit through the rehearsals and everything like that, if you would have a different feeling for those Christmas programs, if you actually had to sit through all of those rehearsals.
Absolutely. How come my son only had 3 lines? Come on.
Oh my gosh. Why? How could you put that kid in as Mary? My daughter is Mary. Her name is Mary. Why can't she be Mary? Oh yeah. I mean, there's just even in churches, these stage parents who just think that their son or daughter needs to be more than just a shepherd. And I'm like, sorry,
Yep.
Yeah.
I identify with that one a lot. My wife especially has been involved in the Christmas programs at our church the last many years, I guess. But this year we're really trying to cut down on things and stress and all that. So we're doing something different. But yeah, we get it, trying to wrangle the kids, trying to corral them, trying to find who to do what. And
yeah, it's something else.
there was one year we were really having trouble getting the kids all together at the same time to practice, and it was just chaotic. And the night of the Christmas play, the girl who was going to have the main part, she was playing Mary. There were some speaking lines, some things. It was, she was the main character. She comes over to our house and says, I'm not feeling well. I don't know if I'm going to make it tonight. And this was like an hour before the performance.
Oh my gosh.
My wife had almost had a panic meltdown, but she managed to pull it together. And it was like, well, how about let's get you over to church and we'll let you lay down on a couch and see how you feel. And and she turned out fine, and it was fine. But it was just like the cap on the end of a really crazy season.
It's that if you are involved in Christmas programs, especially when kids, you have to expect things like, I remember one year, one kid standing up there trying to sing his song, locked his knees, and there he went over. He was done for. So suddenly we had a domino effect through the shepherds. He went down, and then the other shepherds went down with him. So it was people think that book, The Best Christmas Pageant Ever, is like a joke. It's real.
Oh,
it is real. Totally real. That's exactly the way it is. And that's what I sort of tried to capture in that essay, that kind of joyful chaos.
Yeah, joyful chaos. There you go. Yeah. That's what it is. Yeah. But yeah, I loved watching my boys when they were little and they'd be in a Christmas program. And I think we got video of one of them, the kids choir was there singing, and he's like staring off into space, picking his nose,
That's it. Yeah. I remember my daughter, she had just turned 5 years old, her first Christmas program. And there she is. She has her pretty little dress on, and she's standing there and she's looking all cute and everything. And suddenly she's like flipping her dress up and turning around and showing people things that she shouldn't be showing people. Yeah. And it's all on camera. It's all on camera. So that's, like I said, there's something really crazily joyful about those moments. If you can not give in to the stress of trying to throw something like that together, it really can be meaningful.
Yeah. And it's those are both my wife and my mother-in-law have started, when things like that happened, they would say, well, we're making memories. we're making memories.
That's it. If you have that kind of thing in your head, it's all good. If you're the kind of director of a Christmas program where everything has to go exactly the way it's planned, if you're doing it with children, it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. What's the old saying for actors? Never work with children or animals, and that's true.
Unless you want an easy paycheck, but even then, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Right. Well, your album Christmas with Bigfoot is available now on where did it go? I just had it. Well, where is it available? Where can you find it?
It's available streakingintongues.bandcamp.com. That's the first place it's available. Hopefully if you want to do a download, it's there. And if you are looking for a physical CD, those will be available in about a week and a half. Where you can order a physical CD of Christmas with Bigfoot. And it has really beautiful artwork too. We have this artist that we work with. This is our second, if you can believe this is our second Bigfoot album. The first one was called Slow Dancing with Bigfoot, which came out probably about 6 months ago. But we have the same artist who did these really beautiful, beautiful renderings of Bigfoot at Christmas. And I think they're beautiful. They're funny and beautiful at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so it's available there, and I recommend it, and listen to his podcast too, Lit for Christmas. It's a great podcast. And I keep meaning to do this, but you always have the segment where you write something
Mm-hmm.
based off of what you've read, and you invite your listeners to do it as well. And I've always been meaning to do that with you, or try it out. But I'm usually listening if I'm driving, or taking a walk or cleaning the house, and I can't stop to go run and write.
Well,
But
if you ever do it, please send us it, because we're still waiting for someone to
oh,
send us like something that they wrote along with us. It
all
never,
right.
and let me tell you, Amanda and I are so drunk by the end of that podcast that anything you write is probably going to be better than what you hear from us on the podcast. So
Challenge
please,
accepted.
challenge accept. There it is. The gauntlet has been laid. Do it,
All
please.
right. All right. Well, I'm gonna maybe try it out here. Although now I can hear Yoda telling me, "Do or do not. There is no try."
There's no try. That's it. Yep, that's it. I have that in my head too.
Yep.
So
All right. Well, before we go, I want to, although we did talk a lot about memories and things, but do you have a favorite Christmas memory or tradition you'd like to share with the folks?
one of my favorite moments of Christmas always happens not on Christmas Day, but it's on Christmas Eve. I always go to Christmas. I'm a church musician, so I'm in church all the time. But my favorite moment is on Christmas Eve after the 11 o'clock service, and the organ starts playing Silent Night, and the church lights are dimmed, and they start passing the candlelight from one person to another in the church, and everybody's singing Silent Night. And that moment never fails to like move me so deeply, seeing all those people in church holding those candles. It's my favorite Christmas moment every year. I just love that moment.
Yeah. I actually just interviewed someone this morning who wrote an Advent Christmas book, and that's the first story she writes about, is seeing those candles lit in church. And it's a powerful visual and reminder of at least for me, of being a light in the world that we need to be.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about, I mean, for me, that's what the holiday season is about. Whether you celebrate Christmas or Hanukkah or
Mhm.
Kwanzaa, it's about finding the light in the darkness, or being the light in the darkness. And I think that's really what the spirit of this season is really about. It's about, we can focus so much on the darkness, and it's easy to give in to that impulse. But the better choice and the thing to do is to, instead of focusing on the darkness, is to bring a little light into the world. And that's what I try to do every Christmas season. So,
Well, I think there's a lot of light in your writing, and I've really enjoyed what you've been putting on your podcast, and this spoken word album is just wonderful. So thank you for doing that, for sharing that with us. Appreciate
oh,
it.
thank you, Art. I really appreciate having this opportunity to be on. You've given me street cred, because my son loves Cozy Christmas. So the
Oh,
fact that I'm
awesome.
on your podcast, I can go home and be a little cool for just a little bit with him.
Oh, well, that's incredible. That's neat to hear that. So, well, tell him I said hello.
I will do that. I will do that.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks, Marty, and you and your family have a Merry Christmas.
Same to you, Art. Thank you.
Thank you again, Marty, for being on the show, and thank you all for listening. As always, if you would like to support the show, there are some links in the show notes that you can do that, both by leaving a rating and review, as well as some financial ways. You can buy me a cup of coffee on Ko-fi.com, and I will send you a bookmark for any donation, as well as a Christmas card. And I have an Etsy store, as well as a TeePublic store for some different Cozy Christmas logo merchandise items and some ornaments and things of that nature. If you'd like to help support us that way, you can check that out. I've heard that Spotify is now going to start allowing you to rate the podcasts you listen to. I know I've got a big community on Spotify, so hello to all my Spotify listeners, and thanks for taking the journey with me. And if you're able to leave a rating there, that would be greatly appreciated, as it does help with the getting the word out about us. So thank you so much. All right, 2 days left for Christmas. I hope this podcast will allow you to slow down, to reflect on the meaning of Christmas and what Christmas means to you. I'm going to be sharing in the next couple of episodes a few things that Christmas means to me. But I know many of you have different beliefs and different reasons for celebrating Christmas, and I in no way want to exclude you from that conversation. So please feel free to write in and tell me how and why you celebrate Christmas. You can reach out to me at cozychristmaspodcast@gmail.com. So until tomorrow, when we find out what happens to Ebenezer Scrooge after he goes to the future with the ghost of Christmas yet to come, we'll find out. So stay tuned. And remember to be kind to each other and to do good. And that there is nothing in the world so irresistibly contagious as laughter and good humor. Have a very Merry Christmas.